Hey everyone, welcome to my podcast. And I really wanted to dive into something that is really important and a little heavy as a topic, but it is post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Now, when we talk about PTSD, a lot of people think about veterans or folks that have been through some pretty intense stuff like accidents or natural disasters. But there's a whole other side to PTSD that we need to talk about, and that's how it affects minority groups and marginalized communities who deal with stress and threat that is ongoing. PTSD is basically a mental health condition that really kicks in after someone experiences or firsthand or secondhand a traumatic event. Like we're talking flashbacks, nightmares, severe anxiety, and these intrusive thoughts that just won't quit, right? So usually PTSD gets diagnosed if the symptoms stick around for a month or more after the trauma. And here's the thing, when it comes to minority groups and these persecuted and marginalized communities, the trauma doesn't just stop. It's like a never-ending story, and that totally changes the game, the idea of a post-traumatic disorder. So for many people in these groups, trauma is just not a one-off event. It's not a single event in time, but it becomes a part of their daily life, their routines. Just think about it, systemic racism, sexism, discrimination, violence. I mean, these aren't just isolated incidents, they're everyday realities. There's a study from the Journal of Traumatic Stress that talks about complex PTSD. This is where people not only deal with the usual PTSD symptoms, but also have trouble controlling their emotions and maintaining relationships because the trauma is ongoing. So let's zoom in on PTSD in minority groups. When we take African Americans in the US, for example, they face higher rates of police violence and discrimination. This leads to higher PTSD rates, and that is not surprising. There's another research from the Cultural Diversity and Ethnic Minority Psychology Journal that shows African Americans being more likely to deal with PTSD due to racial trauma. And this isn't just about big dramatic events. It's the day-to-day life, day-to-day stuff like discrimination and microaggressions that really take a toll on a person. Just think about persecuted communities like refugees and immigrants. These people are running away from war, persecution, or violence, but even after they leave, they face these new challenges like xenophobia, legal uncertainties about their future, their legal cases, whatnot, and economic hardships that include finding jobs and settling in this new country. The Journal of Immigrant and Minority Health really points out that refugees and asylum seekers are at a very high risk for PTSD because of all the trauma they've been through, both back at home and during and their life to this new country, right? And then when we look, we can also look at the LGBTQ plus community and how these individuals are living in hostile environments. They face constant discrimination, violence, social ostracization, and this is just enough for creating such mental health issues. So the National Center for Transgender Equality says that transgender folks are way more likely to experience PTSD because of the ongoing violence and discrimination they face. This continuous threat really makes it hard for them to recover, for them to process the trauma, for them to get back onto the path of healing. So when we talk about PTSD for these groups, we have to recognize that it's not just about processing something that happened in the past, right? So that is something only a few privileged people benefit off of, where trauma becomes an event in time, a single event in time. These people are are still like living with the trauma every day. It is a continuous experience of traumatic events. And traditional PTSD treatments like usually focus on past events, but for these individuals, we would need approaches that deal with like current threats that help them build not only resilience but coping strategies. The Lancet Psychiatry has a great study emphasizing the need for culturally sensitive interventions that understand this ongoing nature of trauma. And again, when we talk about like culturally sensitive therapy, it's a huge topic. And yes, we're trying to. So like in the psychological research community, people are trying to do much more research on ethnic minorities and marginalized communities, but it is still not enough, right? Many of the courses that I have taken in university really focused on interventions, healing processes, therapeutic alliances based on white samples, based on white male therapists, and yes, even though it has been very informative, there is a huge gap between culturally sensitive therapeutic processes and research. So of course, there are some therapeutic methods that can really make a difference, considering the current database of research and methods. Like one of the most effective treatments for PTSD is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. This type of therapy helps people identify and change negative thought patterns and behaviors. And for those dealing with ongoing trauma, CBT can be adapted to address current stressors and to help build coping skills. And then there's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, or EMDR. This therapy involves recalling traumatic events while following a therapist's hand movements or other like other stimuli maybe. And it has been shown to be particularly effective in reducing the intensity of PTSD symptoms. For people in minority and marginalized communities, EMDR can help process the ongoing trauma they face. And again, this is based on current research. I again implore academics and researchers to, try to understand the complexities and nuances of these marginalized communities. Again, mindfulness and stress reduction techniques can also be pretty helpful. Like practices like meditation, yoga, like deep breathing, can really help manage like anxiety and improve emotional regulation. I mean, these techniques are great for building resilience against everyday stressors for the average individual. Like support groups are also another crucial resource that we could avail. Sharing experiences with like others who understand what you're going through can be incredibly validating and therapeutic, whether it's a group for racial trauma, LGBTQ plus support, or a refugee community group. Finding a supportive network can really make a huge difference. And finally, it is important to highlight the role of culturally sensitive therapy, like I have been mentioning quite a few times. Therapists who understand and respect the cultural backgrounds and unique experiences of their clients can provide like much more effective support. I mean, this means acknowledging the ongoing nature of their trauma and integrating that understanding into the intervention or treatment plan. One big issue that we really need to address as well is how often people dismiss the lived experiences of diverse individuals. Like, it's like they cannot even fathom the nuances of the human mind and the very complex challenges these groups face. I mean, this lack of understanding can lead to like dismissing and minimizing the real trauma these people are facing, and that's where education comes in, I guess. Like by educating ourselves and others about these complexities of trauma and PTSD, and the unique ways it affects different individuals and different communities, we can, I guess, make a more compassionate and supportive society. Like education, like, can help bridge this gap of understanding. When we learn about the systemic issues that contribute to ongoing trauma, like racism, sexism, etc., we, I guess, become more empathetic and better equipped. We have the tools to support those around us. It's not just about learning the facts, but like it's more about developing a deeper appreciation for these lived experiences of others, and advocating for changes that would reduce these ongoing, continuous threats or stressors. I mean, seeing like PTSD through the lens of minority groups and persecuted communities really show us how important it is to recognize continuous and pervasive nature of their trauma. They face like constant threats and stressors that deeply impact their mental health. So like we need to build a broader and a more nuanced approach to diagnosing and treating PTSD. And by acknowledging and understanding their unique experiences, therapists, mental health professionals can really offer better support for their healing and building resilience. Thank you for tuning into this episode. If you found this helpful, please subscribe and share it with others who might benefit. Like, remember, understanding and compassion are key to supporting those around us who might be struggling with PTSD. Well, take care of yourselves. Until next time.